House of the Strong Man Sodomy. Would you please not point that at my anus? Ouch! Ouch! Debauchery and the serious sides of emancipation. So this is especially when it comes to anal sex. Ouch! Be this in the internet porn arena or right up the cultural occult celebrities who dish it out like candy to the children, and they carry it out happily on a global scale. Just what are we being set up for? What is this experience? And why should we dance to their ever-changing tunes? Dionysus. I just want to say, it really creeps me out, right, going into this, but I'm going to do it. Here we go. House of the Strong Man Sodomy. Doctors of law. They were hanging around Jerusalem, so I heard. And they were possessed by Beelzebub. He drive out the good in you. And you get the prince of devils taking over. And they've to like speak in all these different parables and languages or whatever. So in that case, then how can Satan drive out Satan? If your kingdom or your nation is divided against itself, your nation's finished. It'll never stand. The same as if your family's divided against itself, that'll never stand. So if Satan is rebelling against Satan, Satan's also divided and can't stand. So that's the end of whatever that is. And then you get the other side of it, right? Nobody can break into the strong man's house and fuck off with his stuff, like steal his laptop or his stereo system or his car or his watch or I don't know, a pair of his old stinky underpants, right? Because he's a strong man. Because to rob the strong man, you first have to get the strong man knocked out or somehow poisoned or I don't know, get them drunk and then tie them up to rob them, give them some of that devil's fucking breath, you know, and they'll just hand you their stuff and you can fucking do what you want in the guy's house. You know what I mean? So there's a part to it there. That's the first one. You cannot break into a strong man's house. So where do we start with this? Shite, perversion, whatever you want to call it, demonic plague, fucking, I don't know, retarded genome fucking issue. You go back to these Elohim spirits, that's your Freemason programming. That's today we install in sodomy. So then you can also go forward to that to say, well, what the fuck you on about? Well, think about it. What's the best? I mean, the how would you say? The most vulnerable in society are the easiest to make an impression on, right? So, and unfortunately, children fall into that category between the ages of 2 and 4. And that's to do with your child's development in their mind. So these traumatic things can change and damage them, and it makes it easier for you or them, whoever it may be, to control that child, right? You break its temper or something else. Probably won't go into the something else, right? But maybe you can imagine what that might be. So you have to make that child programmable before you can structure it, right? And feed it the information you want it to take forward. And that is only achieved through sodomy, right? So then you say, what the fuck's that got to do with sodomy? Well, it's got a lot to do with it. Sodomy itself attacks the nerves at the base of your spine and changes the neurological, electrical pulse that's gone to your brain. That's spiritual as well. and adds a demonic component, and that affects a person's mind that nothing else will affect, right? Because that's a personal thing. I never forget that. We could take it another way, right? For a person to be able to develop multiple personalities, they would have to be sodomized between the age of 2 and 4. How fucking sick is that? Right? How sick is that? Even just speaking these words makes me want to throw up. So what does sodomy give? It gives you silence. Right? Deaf and dumb spirit. Right? And you have memory loss. Some people who have been involved in these, like, I'm going to go into it, right? I'm going to involve naming and shaming, addresses, wealth, the companies, everything that I can about these bastards, right? So you'll understand what's going on here. At the minute, I'm going to skip by their names because it's important just to understand the leading road and why we're taking this road, because this is the route. This here isn't the route. The route's going to come, but this is the source. The route is whatever's behind this, and whoever's behind this is going to be revealed properly. So this is an occult ritual being performed. So if anybody or people who have been involved in these rituals, right, they've said that that's how they feel. They don't remember it, right? So, and this is called the key to David, and that's relating to the Illuminati, which I could reveal the name. So, the Red Shield is the name. The Rothschild is the name. This is only a front for the actual family name, right? You're going back to occult worshipping, and that's gone back to Nimrod, right? That Nimrod was the Egyptian initiator of the opening up the child's third eye, right? So that's your priesthood at work, and that's sodomy being used to control, manipulate, and also open up the full chakras, including the third eye, right? And that's gone back before the flood. That's like your sodomy is Satan's sex, or Satan's new birth of the new child, right? So you can't become fully illuminated unless you have been sodomized around the age of 3 years age, right? So then if they wait to touch that person until they're 10, 12, 15, they will never be fully illuminated, because you can't open the third eye after about 5 or 6 years age through manipulation, right? And that would be your pineal gland. This just gets sicker and sicker as we go along here. So I don't know. I'm going to continue. Jesus Christ. So seemingly, migraine headaches can be traced from anal sex. I've had migraines, right, and I can assure you I have not been having anal sex, right, before, during, or any time like that. So it comes up from the spine, over the back of the head, and into your forehead, right? So hopefully it's like some, migraine headaches have came from sodomy. Not all, right? Hopefully it's the case, right? So, because I've had these things, right, and they're not nice, and I don't ever remember anything like that, right? So maybe Satan was sodomizing me invisibly, right? Oh, here I've got, no, I won't go into it, because I actually went through something when I was a spiritualist, to do with a vampire family that lives in Scotland, but we won't go into that just now. These things, right, have got elements like Satan. Satan can't sodomise somebody that comes from their own kind, right? But he can influence somebody else to sodomise that person for him, right? I.e. just sodomise him anyway, because that's what Satan is. Satan is the king of sodomy, right? And the power lies within Satan. And sodomy is spiritual. So it's pretty intense, right? I think in the Bible you'll probably find a lot of the best sources for that. So like I said, maybe we shouldn't involve the Rothschild in it, because it's a loose term, right? The name Rothschild is a loose term. It is not the family name or names, right? I've referred to one of the members of the original, right, ruling elite families that we are ruled by, right? They were the ones that took over from the previous flood, or Ice Age, or Atlantis, and all that kind of stuff. They were the ones that would have warned Daphnes about the forthcoming doom, and the Egyptians, and excuse me, Moses, and all these kind of dudes, right? So you're going across the whole Masonic element, and it's like a Jesuit kind of like conspiracy, this, and you'll probably never be able to prove it convincingly 100%, because that's just the way it is. These people rule information, right? They rule everything, even the money that you use. If they decide to make that money illegal, well, you don't have money. And if they decide to stop sending food out, and clothing, and electricity and gas, your internet, everything, then you're fucked, right? So you have the Society of Jesus, and to be in the Society of Jesus, and I'm going to put my hands up here and say something, right? This is information. You have to be fully sodomized at the right age, and you also have to be snipped, right? You have to have no foreskin. So you have to, that's a power in itself again. So again, going back to the third eye, and that to me is your Hollywood projector. And if you're psychic, that's where you would see, or a prophet, you would see your visions through that third eye, called the pineal gland. Not everybody can do it, but you can be trained to use it if you can't. I can basically use it with my eyes open. So you become a mystic through those capabilities as well, and that allows you to open up the spirit world, right? And most mystics have a more feminine side to their structure, including myself, probably. So that's just the way it is. There's women out there that have got more male to their structure, so I don't find it embarrassed or anything like that. I'm still able to deal with it. Even my voice and my feelings and all those kind of things are quite kind of directed in that way. Does that mean I was sodomised between the age of 2 and 4? I'm not telling you. So basically, Jesus and all the disciples would have had to be circumcised and castrated and sodomized between the ages of 3 and 4 to ever be able to get into that cult, I'm going to call it. The Society of Jesus, it's called. That's the actual name for it. Right, a lot of you people will debate this and probably deny it and declare it something else, and say how you're a visionary and you're a psychic and you're a what was it, an empath and all these things, and you've never been sodomized, and well, certainly not by that age, at that age, right? So to do with your third eye, right, your ability to see visions and things that maybe other people can't, right? So basically You're going to be able to become a mystic through, maybe, I don't know if it's a Catholic mystic or any kind of mystic. That is the route you're going to go through. It's called the Legion mindset, and the Elohim and the Legion, right? The Legion mindset has a strongman spirit in it. It's kind of like the house of the strongman. That's the foundation of it, and that's how you develop into the mystic side of it, or into multiple personalities or dimensions. The Legion mindset would be the Alice in Wonderland, MK Ultra, and that's Elohim spirit. That's just one small part of it, and they're all inserted through sodomy, right? So the spirit that's called Elohim in people who have gone through the Masonic ceremonies enters with sodomy, right? Is Elohim in the Old Testament a good word? Right? No, always, because it means spirit. And the original, when Samuel, came up, the witch of Endor said she saw the Elohim coming up. She saw the spirit coming up, not God Almighty. So in an occult world, they have many Elohim, right? And that's to do with Wicca magic circles. That's got the name Elohim and Adonai. So that's not God Almighty. So you've got their spirit standings. They're your, I don't know what you'd call them actually. They're sodomist spirits. They're called the I am spirits. Right. So when you've got somebody with the sodomy spirit, the sodomy spirit claims to be God. So it's just the next step to use the names that you associate with that God, whoever it might be. So the Elohim had sex with Mary to give birth Jesus, right? Because obviously Mary was a virgin and Joseph was impotent, or he might have been an eunuch or something like that. So that wasn't God, right? So you've got people like Mormons, right? Like Joseph Smith. He was called a peepstone gazer, and he had the third eye open, and he was a molester, right? He'd been a Mason. He'd copied the Masonic ceremonies for temple ceremonies, right? This is back to MK Ultra style programming and controlling. So, if you people out there think I'm saying you've been programmed, then that's not, you need to deprogram yourself, because you're obviously feeling it. So, and also anybody who's not Christian would probably go with that. So what you're calling deprogram is actually reprogramming, right? Because you're reprogramming to deprogram. So just let's call it changing your mind, or that kind of thing. So you've got a relationship going on between the Illuminati and the Freemasons, right? So the Illuminati is a class of people who have, illumination in common. So you've got them in the political sense and the corporate sense and the media sense. You've got them in the military sense. You've got them in the you've got them everywhere, right? Let's just say, right? They're all over the place. And you've got them in your political parties, like your Labour, Conservative, Liberal. You've got them in the Democrats, Republicans, right? So in the true sense of the word, Illuminati refers to the enlightened or illuminated ones, and they can be from any brotherhood or organisation. They're all involved. So can you be initiated into the Illuminati? So in a spiritual sense, they have been illuminated or initiated into the illumination of Lucifer. That's the initiation into the light of Lucifer, and that's achieved by sodomy of the 3-year-old, right? So if that person doesn't follow through, they become a dud, They don't go anywhere. So he hasn't really risen up the ranks, and no body within the movement of the Illuminati. So they've got certain degrees associated with being a high level Illuminati. So if you've got those degrees, you wouldn't get there simply by being initiated as a 3-year-old. So the initiation of the 3-year-old is a beginning requirement of somebody rising up into the ranks, you know what I mean, considered to be the Illuminati. So loads of people think the Illuminati is a political group of people, you know, but its true sense is a brotherhood of sodomites, and they're like a family. So when you say family, are you talking about blood related? No, you're talking about a sodomite family bond. It doesn't matter if you're related or not, right? So whether you're a Illuminati, sodomite or whatever, right? If you were like, who is the bride of Christ, or who is the church? Right? That's what I'm going to say to you. The church is basically like, you've got Methodists, Baptists, Nazarenes, and all these different groups. The Illuminati is Lucifer's church, the mystical body of Satan, like I said in the last or the previous one. So sodomy is like communion, but it's also like being born again. And can you do it over and over? So that's intense programming, that's deep monarch, MK Ultra, mind control programming. And sodomy is used over and over and over in that one. And those who have programmers have also got keepers or handlers, right? They're using sodomy all the time to keep the person in line. So basically, your man Johnny Depp's getting his woman as his programmer, keeper, or controller, or can't remember the right name for it this minute, right? So that means he's getting controlled up his Sodom plug hole. So is that pleasurable to be sodomized, or is it a threat? So seemingly them that have been programmed have a locked in 3-year-old mindset, which is the core of the programming. They never grow, they never mature over 3 years old. So just say Johnny Depp has got the mind of a 3-year-old, right? Guaranteed. So just say they're 18, 26, whatever. Somebody comes up and knows the signal or says the right code word, you know, to call out the 3-year-old's core, you know, inside the core. That person's going to, they're going to react to it. They're going to go into a 3-year-old mind, and they're going to be ready to be sodomized again. And the sodomite program is inside their mind, and then they want to go in and program it again. And when that person wakes up, they probably don't even remember that anything happened. So basically a person goes back to being a 3-year-old, to being a total victim to sodomy. And there's Johnny Depp getting sodomized. So there's a lot of ramifications to this. High level politicians give messages, you know, to the King of Saudi Arabia. So they would access sex altars, bring it out, like they would send a female there to give the message, and they would use her as a sex slave, and she would have to repeat the message and she would have to go out and do it again. and then they would ship her to another country, and when she got there, the king of that country would access her for sex at the altar, get the message word for word from the high level politician, and return an answer. So basically it's a picture, and she gets the same thing on the way back as well. So, but she didn't say it was sodomy, but that's what they're doing. You know, each one of them's having sex with her to get the magical thing with him. Then they give the answer, and it's getting done on the way back too. So that's like your subconscious memory. You can program somebody through sodomy, put them in a trance, and directly get access to the subconscious memory files, and you don't need to interface with the conscious mind. So it's sodomy that puts the person into a state where you can actually get inside there. So you might even get them, you know, in a high program, so high that they can just say the word or repeat the code, and that's it. You can program a 50-year-old with sodomy. So we're not safe, you know. So how does that work then? Would you know I've had to get control at that early age? So that's a mind control slave, you know. You can't mind control anybody over the age of 5 unless you've sodomized them. It's a different thing. But when you're creating a program like the Monarch program, they would have started with them as children. That's why all the child actors and actresses all claim to be, or not all, some of them claim they were abused when they were young by certain people, right? And that's because of that program, because they were sodomized at that age. They were also circumcised at that age, and their families were picked, you know, and their mothers and fathers took the money, they took the good jobs and all the rest of it, but they didn't realise that that's what they were doing. It was given to them in a very fly hand, you know. They didn't actually realise that their child or their children were being manipulated at summer camps and clubs, children's clubs, and even in the Disney, in the Hollywood, movies and the likes. The people that are, you would call victims of the Monarch program, do they actually describe their programming? You know, so as we know, the wings of the monarch is the wings of the monarch butterfly. You know, that's actually your pelvic skeleton shape, right? So if you add sodomy to it, you add the abdomen of the butterfly. The other thing about monarch would be that these people are told they are royalty, or the chosen ones, given that a lot of bloodline families in power, you know, in the United States claim to be descendants of European royalty or descendants from monarchs. So, and you can look at it that way. The monarch programming is basically sodomy programming. And some people are kept in bondage by sodomy, like themselves. So, I don't know, the telephone turns into a static sound that lasts for several minutes, like you can't fix it. So sodomy is used to reboot, you know, and reactivate the program, like your computer or the game station. So you think it right is a big push, right? How do you accept it? Because then do you say, like, is homosexuality actually sodomy? Right? So this is me going into touchy ground. If you're homosexual, I'm going to go into it the same as if you're lesbian, right? So you would have to say yes, right? I think there would have to be some kind of sodomy, whether it's by somebody or by yourself, i.e. somebody doing it to you, you doing it to yourself. I don't know, playing about your bumhole or something like that. It both slips in. I don't know, right? We've got to go in that direction. So maybe not all, but basically with what we're dealing with, if you're handpicked, right, and you just happen to be homosexual as well, right? Like if you're a homosexual pop star, actor, politician, royalty, one of these Illuminatis, right, that I'm going to name, the chances are that they've been sodomised at that age because they were circumcised as well. Now, if you haven't been circumcised but you've been sodomised, what does that mean? Right? It means you're very poor. You come from a very poor place, like you were born in a shack and your buck-eyed or your cock-eyed uncle fucking, I don't know what you would call him, your cock-eyed uncle would come round and bum you, you know, grunt and groan and then fuck off, you know, and you're left with a sore bumhole. That's poor sodomy. That's you getting that, you know, if you belong to one of these MK Ultra programs, does that mean you're better off? Well, it depends on if you're materialistic, right? And you want to be successful, you want to be a star and all those things. And these people will take getting bummed. They don't mind a finger up the bumhole, you know, as long as you get the money for it and the cars. I was actually looking earlier and I seen Puff Daddy's got this advert, this program out to, you know, for your mind. He can fuck off. He's a fucking dick. You know what I mean? He's definitely one of them, right? He's definitely involved in this stuff, right? Or else he would have walked away from it as soon as he found out that it was full of sickos, right? He knows, and he that all these famous people that talk about this, they all know, right? They know, because they've seen it, they've heard it. If you travel in a circle of people, like if you're a miner mining the coal face, you're going to know everything about mining, and you're going to know most things about your people that you're mining with, because, you know, you're all in it together. You know, you have to trust each other. So all the gossip and all that gets told, you know, at the coal face, you know. And if you're ready to go over the wall in the war, and everybody's giving away their secrets, you know, that's where you get it all there, you know. That's when you find out. So if you've got a religion, you've got your Catholics and your Masons. They're the top of the list, right? And your Catholic hierarchy, they've got their unofficial stuff going on. They want to doctrine and sodomise 3-year-olds. And we know that because we hear stories about it throughout the Catholic Church. So we're not making this up. And that allows them to bind those children to the church. And when you look at it, when you have wars and you've got all these children as orphans, they go straight to the church, or they go to the orphanage, or they end up with Mother Teresa. Another scam. Right? How these people get Nobel Peace Prizes and claimed as saints is horrific. In fact, I'm going to show Mother Teresa, right, in her true form, and we'll see about that bastard too, right? So they'll say stuff like, give us a child until they're 5, and, you know, they'll always be a Catholic, right? But they don't start any religious training with children in the Catholic Church until they're 5. So basically you're handing in their child to be sodomised and programmed or reprogrammed into their way so that it can be easily controlled, right? And that includes their vicars and not vicars, what would you call them? Priests, aye. So there's people who've been involved in this, you know, like I know somebody that was, let's call it, sodomised by a priest, right? And this happened twice between the age, well, once at the age of 3 and one at 13. And the priest would basically pick a boy and take him into the room and then lock the doors and get the boy to do exactly what they wanted, right? So, and there's also stories about that as well, in other places. So these places are called Boys Town. Most of them are boys only, these kind of daft names. And you've got these boys grow up into elite, you know, fraternities, like the Skull and Bones, at Yale University, the Scroll and Key, and the fraternities of elite sons. So they're all involved in sodomy, right? Because it creates deep bonds, and it's all to do with money and power and their families. So your skull and bones, and that's relating to the order of death. You know, and most of the people that you've got to get coming from the skull and bones are heavily influencing also through the sodomy of Bohemian Grove, where you've got all sorts of former presidents and physicists, and it's just chock-a-block. Alex Jones covered Bohemian Grove really well with Murdoch, I think it was, who would be George Bush Jr. And why would they do things with the dead, you know, and sodomizing a dead person or skull fucking a skull, you know, an actual skull. So basically sodomy is the biggest occult power there is, because you're hitting that electrical point right to the brain and getting full control. So can you be invited to these things? Yes, you can. So yes, you can. If you're a victim of sodomy as a child, right, then you would know what would be going on there. And your Masonic elite, they definitely recruit people who are totally innocent bystanders just to get their hands on their kids, you know, and they'll give them good jobs, they'll befriend them in the area, they'll invite them to the local clubs, you know, events, all these kind of things, and they're interested in their children. Like I said, they'll say, oh, do you know my brother, or my brother's this one, or my sister, and before you know it, this family has got great jobs and moved into a new area, and all because they've got kids that this sodomite culture wants to feed off and control, and then they're also feeding off the father as well, because the same person who's sodomizing the kids is now sodomizing the wife, because the same person's now having a fling with the wife, but he's also wanking off the father in the car, in the fucking car park, watching the children play in the park with their two wives, right? So this sodomizer has got full control on his own family and another family, and God knows how many other ones, right? So all rationality completely goes out the window, and within a week, you know, the whole family's getting abused with this new family that suddenly appeared, and the father doesn't want to say anything because he's getting fucking X amount of £1,000 a year, he's getting a car, a new house, he's able to look after his family properly, so he doesn't mind the fact that his wife's getting sodomized. Meanwhile, the wife who's been sodomized realises that the guy's also sodomizing her daughter. She doesn't know yet that he's actually sodomizing all the kids, including his own kids, and all the kids in the neighbourhood, and all the wives and all the husbands. This guy never had. He used to say that he was an on-the-road salesman. He never had an on-the-road. He was too busy sodomizing all the people and taking their cash and delivering that. I mean, this is a big con job. So this is what's going on in this, and these people are billionaires, right? I'll name the person at some point, and that's a living, breathing person who's very, very popular and charitable society. So basically within a week that person would have a hold of your family, right? And all your children's eyes would be wet with crying. Your daughters would be how do you say, yeah, you'd have a new house, right? And then before you know it, this guy turns up at the house, and you maybe went out for a while, and your daughter's in the house, and he's going to turn, or she's going to turn up, or the two of them are going to turn up, and they're going to say, oh, do you like your new house? And they'll say yes, and they'll say, oh, come here, let me show you something, right? And inside the house that they've given them is a secret room, right? A walk-in closet And before you know it, they're inside that room being molested. Right? And they were given suitcases with lingerie and paraphernalia, sodomizing tools, dildos, that kind of stuff. Right? And they would completely empower that the daughter until her eye was wide open. Right? So within a week of moving in, the oldest daughter's been sodomized, she's been took apart, reprogrammed, and now she's walking around with makeup on. She's got an attitude problem and she's not home, she's climbing out the back window. She doesn't like that house, you see. And it's the same thing that can happen when there's an entity or a haunting in the house. It's a very similar thing, but the monarch programming is done like in the flesh by real people who are very powerful, and their servants will go in and sodomize until they're broken down completely and they own the whole place. And then all the children have been sodomized, and all the adults are turning a blind eye because they want to pay the rent, they want to keep their car, and all these things have all happened. You know, Robbie Williams, the singer, he was asked about, you know, I watched an interview with Chris Trowell, it is, a former British Marine, sorry Chris if you listen. And he was asked about, you know, the Illuminati and the monarch, why did he appear with the butterfly jacket and all that kind of stuff, and why does he have a butterfly table? And Robbie says, well, basically I liked the jacket, I thought, wow, that looked good on you. He says, and it did. And he says, my wife, she was redesigning the house and she bought the table, and I walked in and thought, oh, I like that table. So that's how he explained that off. But then he was accused of being involved in this, you see. I'm not sure what the depth of that is, but I believe that he's got something there, right? I'm not going to say any more than that. Because people can be treated like little girls that are boys, right? And people can be cross-dressers, and you can uncover things in them, like your I was going to mention a very, very famous company, Nike. There you go, right? Their founder member is a Mason, and he's a cross-dresser, and he likes to be called Grandpa. They used to have little girls sit on his knee and sodomise him. Right? If you don't believe it, then that's fine, but I'm telling you. Right? So, people have been trying to get to pin on him, right? He's got the pornography, he owns most of your pornography, child pornography that you'll get on the internet. He is behind it. And he'll lie about everything, he'll lie his way out of everything. He's like your blue-eyed boy, you know. And women have fled from him through the years. Right, because he realised that he was actually more interested in the children than the women, and he was also interested in men too. Right, he thinks he's a strong man, he thinks he's an Olympian. Right, that's what he thinks he is. He is a member of the Olympians, and there's 150 of them. And to answer to that, like, he's a creep, but there's many creeps in this, and I'm going to cast them out. I'm going to give them a big red rash right in their forehead, so every time people look at them, they'll know who they are. Right? So basically, as you're walking through this, sodomy's got a spiritual component to it. Right? So I want to go back in and see what this evil power does, because we know about MK Ultra. People will tell you everything about MK Ultra. I don't want to go into the kitty club and all that kind of stuff and all this, you know, the abuse, the Michael Jackson, you know, conspiracy, where he was fatally wounded. He was turned into a drug addict. He was advised to take opium or opiates to control it, and then he was described as a junkie, as a heroin addict, as a crystal meth addict. I mean, the guy, Adolf Hitler was also taking all these drugs to try and calm his nerves down, because he was part of the same club. His mother was a maid in the household of Rothschild, and Hitler was the illegitimate son of a Rothschild. And the reason why he took it so badly was because his family was poor, and yet the Rothschilds had a castle and had institutes in the very place. Donald Trump's family, right, is also from Frankfurt, right, and they're the Jewish side, they're the Zionists, right, and I could name more on this. So you've got the Brotherhood of the Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, elite cadets, that kind of stuff. Right, so this is a very, very sensitive area. A lot of these guys as mothers and fathers have been a bit dodgy. They've been up to all sorts. These kids don't do very well at school. A lot of them, unfortunately, have been victims of sodomy at this age. So these stories are all out there, and they're very successful. Like, they're very good at sports. They're endurance experts. They've got really, really, really deep ability to conquer, and they've got this yearning to create, to compete in every challenge that they got, and they can turn their rage on and off. That's why they went into the military in the first place, so that they could get away from certain things. But even in some militaries, when you go into places like West Point, you're going to get sodomized in there, right, if you want to be an officer. And most people will quit before they'll do that, even though they've got the qualifications or the ability to do it. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, if you're a Navy SEAL or anything like that, but that's what's going on. And it will also happen in the other world forces too. So the contact that I'm using is a former West Point Academy, how do you say, I don't even know what a student, would you call them? I'm not sure. I need to ask that. I never asked that. So yeah, I never asked that. I'm going to. So basically, when this person was in war, or when any person's in war, you get traumatic things happening to your soldiers, and they can't remember it. They have a memory loss. Well, this is the same thing happens when you're sodomized as a child. It's a denial system kicks in, and it produces this ability for you to to compartmentalize everything. And when you do that, you can be in a certain compartment of your mind without detracting from the other ones, in your mind. So if you're in a pure rage compartment, you don't have any kindness or loving diluting it. If you're raging, you don't allow any kindness or loving to stop it. So you're profiling that in the military. They're programming that into you to find a man. He fits into the untapped rage pattern. They look for men that get rage, because you need those men to fight. So you could go through these sodomy acts and create powerful males and powerful females. But males and females are different. So females are best for becoming like computers or recorders, for humans. And most men and most women are capable of creating these multiple personality systems. That's just because of the way a female mind works, And then you've got the men. Men are said to be more aggressive, right? So the percentage of women who are sodomized and become the perpetrators of sodomy, that's a lot lower. The percentage of men who become a perpetrator of sodomy. They're all victims, to start with. So, a lot of women turn out to be victims rather than perpetrators. And And there's men out there who didn't go on to become perpetrators, and they stay victims, just like the women. So, and there's women who became perpetrators. You've got witches, right? Witches are perpetrators. And like men, they're molesters. You know. Women sodomise, you know, with objects. They molest children. But it's a very lower percentage than it is in men. You know. So, this whole thing is creeping me out. And it's getting on very long. So the trigger can be used to activate each compartment through the MK Ultra system. And they just use sodomy to make them forget the whole experience of being MK Ultra. So if they'd been sodomized, they wouldn't remember for months and months and months after it had happened. And nobody would know what was going on with them, and then you find out later somebody took them and sodomized them. And it all comes out in a fit of tears. You know. It's a very spiritual experience. You just say, let's say somebody sodomizes either a male or a female. So when they do that, the person has a spirit by the person's name. You know, the sodomizer tells them a name, and that name stays with them throughout their life. You could see them 40 years later and say that name, and instantly the person who's been sodomized is under their control. Right? And that's called the Legion mindset. You can put that name in, use it, boom, switch them off, get control of them, and then make them do whatever you want. And the strongman spirit, you know, that Jesus spoke of, you know, that's the spirit of sodomy. It's an unclean spirit. And it stays with the person who created the sodomy in the first place. Right? So when you sodomise a child, you build a doll's house, you know, and you put the 3-year-old inside it and trap it in there. And every time the person who sodomizes that point becomes a strong man. So let's say that Joseph sodomized Jesus, right, as a 3-year-old inside their house and locked him inside the core of their mind. And along comes somebody else and sodomizes Jesus later. Now they've got 3 of them. You've got Joseph, Jesus, and the newbie. And then comes another one later, and then comes another one later, and then comes another one later, and then comes another guy, and you know, another one. And then the whole legion of sodomites. And they've all got their own name. So that means that child has many personalities or spirits of the sodomites in the house of Joseph, the strong man, the original sodomizer. That's where you get your multiple personality syndrome from. He's being sodomized from different people who leave their different names, and you become each one of those names you become in your multiple personality disorders. I hope you're staying with me on this. So, when you say multiple personalities, right, are they spirits? Nah, they're not spirits. You know, the whole multiple mindset is a demonic mindset. It's a Legion style mindset of many. So it's like Mark 5's, you know, my name is Legion, for we are many. And Jesus released them all at once. For the benefit of anybody who was looking on, 2,000 pigs went crazy and drowned, while the man was again clothed and in his right mind. So basically all of his legion of spirits, multiple personalities, or anything you want to call them, are all gone, and his mind was right. The whole multiple mindset is a wrong mindset, is a fantasy world mindset. So what's possession of demonic spirits? You know, if you get rid of every demon that had multiple personality, you know, disorders, you know, there would no longer be multiple, basically. So you allow certain helpers or child alters to remain, you know. So you've got you cannot get free You know, as long as you have any of that left, you know, your mind's not working like God intended it to work, basically. So your sodomy, the house of the strong man, gets stronger and stronger. And if you're a believer and you can accept that Jesus Christ can deliver, then you have been able to free people from the house of the strong man, right? And that happens on a number of occasions, but not always. It's quite rare, I think, that you can actually release somebody from the trap. So if you're ever trying to cure somebody who's suffering or has been through the MK Ultra program as a child, right, then you're going to find it great difficulty, because they're going to lie and deny about everything. They will never admit it. Let's go as an example of Macaulay Culkin and the other wee guy, I can't remember who it was, the movie star. Both their fathers put them up to the shaming of Michael Jackson as a paedophile, right? And both their fathers went to jail and died because of it. And both these lads are lying about who actually sodomised them, because it was their own fathers that sodomised them. Both their fathers were involved in the MK Ultra program. The creator of the program is Joseph Mengele. In the 20th century, he was Joseph, right? And it's been around for, I don't know, 500 years, that name, Joseph. You know, it was to do with the devotion to Mary, you know, and you call them Saint Joseph, you know, and it's like Joseph is the father of the system, the sodomizing father that cares for his children, you know. And when you're sodomized at 3, you bond with the person who's sodomizing you. Whether he's a man of the cloth, the church, or whatever he is, the sodomy is done. You can, and it's been around for hundreds of years, the Joseph name. Ignatius Loyola is the founder of the Jesuits. So the house of the strongman sodomy is the house of the Rothschild, the Red Shield. That bloodline is Joseph, right? And basically they'd used them as a male prostitute, sodomized them as a boy in rituals to get the power of the bloodline, right? So there's plenty of people who have been through the strongman house of sodomy. Plenty of people. Like we were saying. So, if you're just being fondled sexually and became a multiple, then I don't know. And you can't find people who have went through occult rituals without being sodomized, male, young or old. So that's why homosexuality was rife in Greece, and that is the downfall of your society. Greed, homosexuality, you know, and all these kind of things. That's the breakdown of your civilization, when nobody's producing any children. They're like massive sacrificial rituals to cleanse the population and make everybody multiple, you know, personalities, get them all, you know, sodomized, get them all circumcised, get them all under control. You've got ritual murders and sacrifices through that. That's MPD, that's multi-personality disorders, that produces. You've also had sodomy. So when the push comes to the shove, you know, if you've got the symptoms, then I feel for you. And every program, including 5G, is going to enter your pineal gland, your crystal sand reflector, you know. And what that does is, crystal obviously it stores data, and you can manipulate it. So the 5G is entering through your pineal gland. That's how they're controlling you. think a lot of Christians are a bit silly and they don't catch on. They literally believe in the word of everything they ever hear, and they just don't check it out. You know, the ideology of it all. And they think they're actually still living in the days of the children of Israel who were in Egypt, you know, and they were all sodomized. I mean, that whole civilization was into sodomy. Of course it was. And even in the days of Noah, even in the days of the Son of Man, you know, you don't eat, you know, you don't drink, you don't marry, you don't have kids, you know. But they did. They drank, they married wives, they were given into marriage, you know. And that was only up till Noah entered into the ark. And then the flood came and destroyed them all. So, likewise, in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. And then the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone, you know, and destroyed the whole lot. And that came from heaven, seemingly. That's them, that's the controllers. When they say to you, oh, there's an incoming comet, we're going to lose everything, the whole, you know, the solar flare's going to burn everything, that's those controllers, that's the machine that I'm on about, that I've been showing in my videos, and nobody can see what I'm showing, and I mean, it's ridiculous. You're never ever going to see it crystal clear, but surely you must be able to see something, you know. Anyway, so there's nothing wrong with marrying and buying and selling. We all do it, you know. What's the common thing of these times that we have with the past? You know, you've got Lot, he was in Sodom, you know, and that's where the word sodomy comes from. It meant anal sex, or you call it anal intercourse. What other sex do you think they could produce? No. Well, I mean, they're trying to break the back door down to get in, you know. They wanted to get their supernatural power and their belief. So the cult world, you know, you could sodomize God, you'd get God's power. You become gods through sodomy. And that's the way the Greek gods become gods. And Alexander the Greek, he was another great sodomizer. And his Greek army was too. Aye, so Alexander the Great's army, they were fierce, you know. Hitler, he tried to pattern his SS and military after the Greek warriors, also using sodomy. When you put it all together, the Hitler stuff was crazy, because they had the boys and the girls in the Hitler Youth, and they were like just using them as sex tools and brainwashing them into hating Jews and the communists and all the rest of it, you know. That's another conversation that I'm going to get to. I'm going to do the Hitler thing as well. I can't not do it because he's part of it. The civilization, that God wiped out, that boiled down to the acts of sodomy, because there wasn't enough women, you know. And somebody had to control the beginning, and that's how they controlled it. It's the same thing when I said about Adam and Eve. They had Cain and Abel. Well, where did the females come from? Cain and Abel, cannibal, you know. What did they do? Eat each other, and plus one killed the other. So there wasn't even any. So who was sodomizing there? Adam or Eve? Or were they both doing it? I mean, my God, what's going on here? Where were the females to reprocreate or have sex with, you know, to produce offspring, like I said before? And people that have hemorrhoid issues, they've probably been sodomized as well, but they won't admit it. So you get sodomy pornography on the internet, you know, and people make money out of that, and they show themselves being sodomized so that people can give them, you know, credit card payments. And she was the secretary at the church, you know, and she was running the whole internet sodomy thing, you know, making money. And you've got links between Satanism, Freemasonry and Jesuits in there. And then you've got Alistair Crowley in his 33-degree Mason, you know. So where do your Masons get the sodomy? And it comes from Alistair Crowley, from the black magic Hinduism, you know. That's where he's saying it's come from, and that's what's in place. You American people are going to hate me for this, right? But I actually do have a connection through the family. My great ancestor is John Paul Jones. And I'm also related to another great American family that I am still part of, which I'm not going to mention or name, but I have already mentioned and named them, and I have already used, and I am currently using the contact from that. So what's the difference between Satan and Lucifer? Same person? Nah. Jesus said Satan comes either as an angel of light or as a roaring lion. And Satanism is a roaring lion principle. And in Luciferians, it's the angel of light principle. Basically, in Masonic, the white and black checkered floor is the light and dark balancing factor. And in the Bible, sodomy is translated as uncleanliness. In Job 36, right, 13 to 14, it says that hypocrites in heart die young and live among the unclean. If you take what's in the margin of the King James or New King James and reread the verse, it would read like this: hypocrites in heart, their souls die, and they live among the sodomites. Sodomy kills the soul, destroys the soul. Roman 1 describes the route to having a reprobate mind as a progression. And whereas God also gave them up to uncleanliness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonour their own bodies between themselves, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, like covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to their parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, you know, who know the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. Not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Romans 1, 24, 28-32 kg, King James. So, holy access. I'm going to get on to the pontiff and the emperors, right? And this is all going to lead into this perversion and the relationships with demons. So let's just say that you are working in Area 51, top secret, you can't talk about it, you know, and you ask what about the alien thing, you know, you get your stealth bomber, that's your advanced technology. You could probably get other words than that now, you know, the American public's aware of, and how it's developed 30 years ago, and what do you think of it, blah blah blah. So the alien thing's a cover scheme, right? That was made up by the Area 51 people, right? It's a cover scheme. Most people who believe in aliens say that their first abduction occurred around the age of 3 years old, right? And there are also many similarities in the occult ritual abuse that comes along with that. And when you put together sodomy and ritual abuse, the demons are going to be layered in there. You know, they give you a new mindset at 3 years age, the fantasy world. This is what the whole alien thing is all about. There's no such thing as aliens from other planets, right? There's demons. And we'll go back to the flying snakes, dragons and demons, right? So you've got personalities like David Icke are actually moving the one world religion, you know. He's indoctrinating it. He wants to replace demons with aliens, you know. And the real agenda behind this is to remove your human connection to the ills, you know, that befall you, and they're interfacing into the other world of humanity. So they attempt to remove humanity's spiritual morality and its main role as a creator, you know, in the state of your earthly existence. So in creating the alien script, they not only defeat humanity by having them do the contrary things, they also create and cover for drone armies, right? So how do you know where demons live? It lives inside your mind. That's where it lives. That's the origins in your mind. You take a 3-year-old, right, that's untouched, and somebody sodomizes a child. So the guy's name is whatever. The child has a sodomy demon called that name riding throughout their life, right? And that's conceived or reproduced from the Joseph demon. You know, and where did that come from? You know, it's birthed inside the child's mind by the act of sodomy. It didn't come from anywhere. It was birthed. It was reproduced right there. The child was given a copy, and the copy machine, as the sodomizer, reproduces another copy, and the copies are all demons. Okay, the act of sodomy and the MK Ultra, and how do you get the physical body? How do you get the physical body door to open? That's your first chakra. You know, that's your first dimensional self. You know, that's the place where you're unable to reflect upon yourself. Your perceptions of your root chakra, they lie in your unconscious, you know, usually. So the first dimensional portion can only be aware of your hive and species consciousness, right? Your first chakra, it's got many masculine qualities, but it's also the seat of the goddess Kundalini, right? And often that's associated with your relationship of mothers and Mother Earth, and your relationship with your own mother, set up on your own attitude towards home, security and money, you know. So if you cut yourself off from the roots, Willie G, you'll lose your home, your security and your money, and you'll feel cut off from the earth as well. And the first chakra rules over your survival consciousness and your instincts to represent a deep unconsciousness, and it hits you right in your primitive self. And that chakra represents a reptilian portion of your brain, which I've mentioned before. That's your brain stem, right? That's your centre for life support. The brain stem is the area immediately above it. They're called the reptilian brain because of all creatures from reptiles to humans possess it. For reptiles, this area is their entire brain, but for human, it's the base or stem of their brain, right? And that's at the top of your neck, just behind there. There's a small brain in there, like I said before, called your reptilian brain. So the first chakra represents your birth, you know, upwards to the age of 2. And that's the age of 2. This is the time when you've completed your process of individuation, and also you perceive yourselves as part of your parents, right? That's the struggle to come to terms with your physical life and your physical body at that age. So each chakra feeds prana into different endocrine glands, you know, and there are 7 chakras. There are 7 endocrine glands, and the chakras in the endocrine glands are located alongside the spinal cord, which is the very same place that the house of strongman, sodomy, hits when they sodomize. And the endocrine glands manufacture the hormones and supply them to your bloodstream, and they get called ductless because there's no duct in any specific part of the body. Instead, the hormones are released into your bloodstream, where they're carried by the blood to every organ, and then that influences the functions of your body. So the endocrine gland as the first chakra is your adrenal gland. There's 2 of them, located, one at the top of each, you know, of your kidneys. They are the glands that your body, that's the army, that's your military in your body, is those glands. And they're the ones that are going to battle or fly away or give up. And you release adrenaline, and the adrenochrome is also involved in that, and that can activate your fight or bring you into a real or some kind of danger, Like if you've got a mental illness, you'll feel you're in danger, because that's getting hit hard, it's activating it hard. And therefore your emotions can activate a release of adrenaline, that's when you've got extreme fear, and that's what you call fried fish. And in chronic anxiety, that's what they're mining, the fried fish, the adrenochrome that they take from the children. So you've got the sacral plexus, that's where your first chakra is located, and it's like and the nerve centre, the sacral plexus is the nerve centre that rules your skeleton, your legs, your feet, your alimentary system, your male reproductive organs, and also your prostate gland. And it also rules your first and second dimensional cells. And your first dimensional self represents your genetic coding, like your cells and minerals in your body, and also represents your primitive animal self, which is represented by the same fight or flight response that serves, the survival of your species. And the root chakra also rules the male sex glands and the testosterone that they secrete. So the testosterone drives the males in our society, and the male, polarity of your psyche, to perpetuate and protect humanity, not carry your gene. The Muladhara chakra, that's the foundation for the whole chakra system, and that functions in response to any issues that are anything to do with survival, like eating, sleeping, exercising, recovering from illness, making a living, or simply feeling safe and secure. And if your survival needs are properly taken care of, then you can feel safe, and you can focus on levels such as learning, creativity, or your relationships. So if there's some danger or damage to your chakra, then you find yourself repeatedly coping with threats to your survival, which keeps you from accomplishing other things. So your chakras are your ancient depositories of all the divine energy given to the human at the beginning of time, the seven spirits guiding us on your path of transformation, your initiation into the mysteries of life, the knowledge of the use of the chakras as a means to spiritual awakening. That's, people have been trying to get that across for the ages, and they've had huge religions in one form or another. In Sanskrit, the name of the first chakra is Muladhara. It means root and support. It's situated in the male's midway between the anus and the genitals, at the perineum, and that's your prostrate. And in the females, at the cervix, where the vagina and uterus join. Muladhara is the lowest chakra in the human being, but the highest in animals. So it's a chakra group of consciousness, where animals live, and also humans who identify themselves only by family, nationality, race and religion, yet able to detach from groups and embrace their own individuality and independence. It's an energy which is uttermost negative in the aspect, and it's heavily worked at in all ethnic wars, right? So it's depicted in Hindu teachings as a 4-petaled deep red lotus flower, which I mentioned before, the lotus flower, and that relates deeply back into Lilith and Ishtar and Nineveh. Its colour is red, and the colour of passion and the motive love is the number of 4. 4 is a number of manifestation of matter. So we deal with the energy of the material world. In fact, its element is earth. So when the energy as this chakra is not activated and purified, when our consciousness is not developed beyond the 3 button chakras, we are unconscious of ourselves as individuals. We relate to the world out of our particular tribe, at the exclusion of everything else. We're almost entirely self-centered and concerned with issues of survival in the material world, and the energies manifest in negative aspects like anger, greed, revenge, collective hatred, lust for power and control. Like I said before, people are looking to take control of something they never had control of. It's like, what? So there's a need for a security and control and a dominant energy there, right? And these 3 energy channels are called nadis, right? and they make up the ascent to Ajna, which is your third eye, right? And that's entwined around your spine, and that's crossing over every chakra. Ida is a material energy related to the breath flow in the left nostril, to the parasympathetic nervous system, and your Pingala and the vital, no, that's your vital energy. That's on your right nostril, and that's your sympathetic nervous system. And your your Chinese concept of yin and yang corresponds exactly to the Ida and Pingala. And that the main channel that comes through your central canal in the spinal cord, that's called the Sushmanya, and that's responsible for your spiritual awakeness. Sushumna rises up to your crown chakra, and through this canal Kundalini rises, the divine creative energy in us. You know, when you awaken that transforms you from unconscious into conscious human beings, and gives you the full control of your body, mind and soul. You know, because Muladhara is directly connected to Ajna through Ida and Pingala. Awakening of your Muladhara awakens also Anja, in the centre of spiritual intuition and spiritual vision, and vice versa. So basically you're dealing with the opening and closing of your third eye, which is your pineal gland. And you go into occult and Dion, you know, that's to do with the vibrations detected. The reason there's so much sand in Egypt is because we're using it to generate electrical currents. And also in the Sahara Desert it's the same. That changes the rate of vibration, and it also raises the consciousness in the Ajna chakra. That's commonly called your third eye. That's its actual name, right? There's particles of very fine substances resembling sand within there, within your pineal gland. It's like a little acorn in your brain. It's the same thing that the Anunnaki hold in their hand. They hold an acorn, and that's relating to the Anja, your third eye, your pineal gland, and that consists of very fine substances that are like sand or crystals. It's like something you get in a computer or a receiver. So that's receiving, right? And the secretions of that are coming along your endocrine glands, and vibrations are radiating from your chakras, right? And this is where you get your forms of sexual magic control, and that utilises the vibrations within that, right? And these are all relating to phallic cults. They possessed the knowledge, the true knowledge of these matters, and then it got lost, or it was perverted by the improper use, which is what's being used now in the sodomy. So it's what remains in your ancient wisdom as remnants of your debased and phallic rites, your consciousness current, you know, your magical and mystical. So the mystical operates, the magical operates in a lower chakra, and your mystical operates in the higher chakra. And that's when a male ejaculates semen, that's an unabsorbed energy, that's prana or ojas, and it always contributes to the creation of a material form. So whether it's lodged in the womb or not, you know, if it's overflow like masturbation, sodomy, fellatio, like it's taken up by the astral and entities, and that builds in your orgasmic state, right? And you've got all sorts of things coming in here. So when they're sodomizing, they're marrying beasts into women, and women beasts into men, and like your Book of Thoth, for instance, right? That's a union of an electrochemical and stellar vibration, right? Which they introduced into the Beast of Babylon. And that lies the key to the next stage of the evolution of your planet. This is where you start to get these controllers coming in. So at this point in the video, we're kind of coming into how do you say, the Universal Mystical Brotherhood, right? Which populated a lot of Washington DC, Columbia, state of Columbia, in the 1800s. So these societies of New York City were created by well, not created, but Colonel Henry Steele Olcott. We're going to go into this right at some point. He was interested in a psychic phenomena, and that was to do with ancient and occult religions and philosophies. But Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Egyptian Hermetic traditions, Neoplatonism, the Kabbalah, Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Mesmerism and Spiritualism. This society split up into different branches and splinter groups, and one of these societies was it was influenced by the teachings of Blavatsky. Blavatsky, she fled to the United States. Madame Blavatsky, she was called, and she wrote a book called The Secret Doctrine, and this introduces guys like Ledbetter and former Buddhist, clairvoyant, and Ledbetter and Besant. They wanted to bring in their ties to theosophy and science and psychic phenomena, and they released and co-authored a book called Occultist Chemistry, where they spent a number of years developing the society that Blavatsky had founded in Madras. So the Theosophical Society was also relating into paedophilia, and that was, I think it was expelled at one point and then readmitted by Besant, after she became the president. So when this happened in your India, she began to groom young boys as the next vehicle of the Supreme World Teacher of Christ, basically. That's what she was getting up to. Cranial manipulations, they're called. So with that, I'm happy that this part's over. There's going to be a lot more. This video went on a lot longer than what I thought, but so be it. Done and dusted. Thanks for listening. Ciao. Oh, by the way, use people, you're going to get named and shamed. Sorry, said it again. Cheers. Thanks for listening. Thanks. Bye.